Welcome to A Walk in the Woods, Hiking New Hampshire. Get ready to embark on an educational adventure as we uncover the hidden gems of the Granite State. Join us as we hike through dense forests, summit craggy peaks, and discover the rich history and natural beauty that New Hampshire has to offer. Whether you're an experienced outdoors enthusiast or a novice explorer, our journey will teach and inspire you. So lace up your boots and experience the thrill of hiking in New Hampshire like never before. This is A Walk in the Woods.
Well, hello everybody. Good morning. Here we are, another year. It's 2025, April 30th, and today we're going to look at wildflowers, and we're going to look at the first wildflowers of this region. We're in Unity, New Hampshire, but the plants we're going to see today are abundant throughout the county. So you probably know some of these, and if you don't, you can definitely go find them. But these are the very first wildflowers of the season, and they don't last very long. So if we miss it this year, then make a point next year to go out early in April and look for these plants. We're going to do 4 plants today on April 30th, and then we're going to come back in a week and start looking at some other ones, because the spring flowers are quick. Some of them last a week or 2, some only last a couple of days, and that's what makes it fun. After a long winter, you come out in the spring and you've got these amazing things to check out, and in some cases eat, and we'll talk about that as well. So I also wanted to mention that it being 2025, April 30th, as opposed to another year, in that the flowers don't bloom the same day every year. So next year, these same plants that we're going to look at today, they may fire off 2 weeks earlier, April 15th, or they may go the first week of May. So this is it's a window, and it's kind of like a domino game, where you'll see a certain plant bloom, and then you know what's coming next a couple days later, and what will follow that, and so on throughout the season. And that happens all the way into the fall, where certain things bloom at certain times of year. So again, today what we're going to focus on are the absolute earliest wildflowers of our region. And the very first one I want to mention is right here. If you look down on the ground, you can see that there's a plant here. We don't have any leaves. We just have these stalks, and they're all closed up because it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's about 55, 58 degrees. So they all closed up for the night. We'll come back at the end of our walk today and take a look at them more like 11 o'clock and see what they look like. Okay, so here we are. We're ready to see our next plant. And in order to really enjoy this, I want you to see the context that it's growing in. So here we are in a deciduous forest with a few pine trees, a little bit of hemlock, but mostly sugar maple, birch, beech, what we call classic northern hardwoods forest. But if we look up over the rise here, you can see down there in that swale where the water naturally collects, maybe you can make it out. There's something yellow down there in that wet area. And we're going to walk down and see what that is. Here we are in this wet depression, and we see all of these beautiful plants, bright green with yellow flowers. And if you don't already know the name, I'll tell you. This is called marsh marigold. Also the Latin, which is caltha palustris. Caltha is the genus, and palustris is the specific. Palustris means of water, and hence we're here in water. You won't find this plant if it isn't fairly wet. And caltha is in the family of Ranunculaceae. It's in the ranunculus family, which is also called the crowfoot family. A very ancient plant family, goes back hundreds of millions of years. So let's take a look around the other side. Such a beautiful picture that this big hunk of dirt here is actually a tree that fell over because it's wet all the time, and it's making a really nice backdrop for the flower. Let's come in close and look at the flower itself. So here we have the marsh marigold. It's got a lot of common names. This is a very ubiquitous plant. It occurs throughout eastern North America, also in Europe. And I want to read you a few of the wild common names that this plant goes by throughout its range. It appears in Shakespeare as merry bells. So in Cymbeline and maybe some of the other plays, you might see the word merry bells. That's talking about this plant. But other common names, here we go. Cowslip, which they think goes back to cow's leek, which is totally bizarre because this is not in the onion family. It has nothing to do with leeks, and yet apparently that was originally the name, cow's leek, which is now cowslip. King cup, because it's got a goblet-shaped flower. Brave bassinets. Crazy Beth. Horse blob. Molly blob. May blob. Boots. Soldier's buttons. Water dragon. Drunkards. Water goggles. Golds. Cow lily. And marybuds. And that's just a few. There's probably twice as many common names, but those are the coolest ones I wanted to share with you. Okay. Marsh marigold is indicative of water with high oxygen levels. These plants need that high oxygen in order to thrive. It also tends to be indicative of water that's higher in iron, because the plant really doesn't like nitrogen or phosphorus, and water that's higher in iron naturally binds the phosphate. And so if we tested this water, it's probably high in iron. So one of the really great things about marsh marigold is that it's edible, and it's considered to be one of the better edible wild plants. You have to harvest it a little earlier than now, before it blooms, because there is a chemical, a poison in the plant, which concentrates once the plant has bloomed and beyond. The very first leaves before it blooms are as low in that chemical as possible. But you shouldn't be scared about the chemical. It's a lot of things have chemicals, and we've learned to process different foods differently. So in the case of marsh marigold, what you do is you change the water. You simply boil it for up up to an hour and change the water twice. And once you do that, the chemical has completely dissipated and been converted. It's boiled off, basically. But if you do that, if you harvest it and cook it, you end up with what's called a pot herb, which is basically a plant that you have to cook before you can eat it. And your pot herb is ready to eat. You can add some butter. Most people like to mix a little cream in with it, or Parmesan cheese, and you end up with something similar to spinach. I tried it last year. It was pretty good. It's definitely a little bit bitter and distinctive, but I would definitely try it again. The other really cool thing about marsh marigold, as is true of any very early spring flowering plant, is that it's very important for pollinators. You know, the insect life has been waiting for anything to feed on, and marsh marigold being this early is really important for a variety of insects, including hoverflies, beetles, thrips, bugs, butterflies, sawflies, bees, many bees, ants, and regular flies. The seeds, as you might expect, float, and each flower will produce about 200 of the seeds. So we're just going to follow along this drainage, and I want you to see just how many of these plants there are. So that's marsh marigold, and now we'll go on to our next plant. Okay, so we're ready for our second one. Now this one's a little harder to find. If you look around, we're just on a road, a woods road, and look around the ground. There's really nothing going on. The plants are just starting out. There was snow on the ground maybe 2 weeks ago. But if you look back here at the road and look down, you'll notice that there's these leaves that are kind of pressed against the ground. They're kind of flat. They're little, they're pretty small. And then, if you come over here, you can see that there are actually flowers on them. Little yellow flowers. And this, see if we can find you an open one. Here's another one. So, there we go. So this is a yellow violet, and the plant is called round-leaved violet. And it's our very first violet. All the other violets won't bloom for a couple of weeks yet, and we'll see those later in a subsequent walk. But this is our first violet, roundleaf violet. The Latin is viola rotundifolia. Rotund means round, and folia means leaf. So literally, round leaf violet. Now the cool thing about this plant is that you can see the leaf is quite small. The leaf will continue to grow throughout the season, and they lay down flat against the ground. See it right here? You can see how, or right here in the sun. See how they kind of lay down? That's different. Other violets usually have leaves that go up, but this one stays close to the ground. These leaves will continue to grow. They'll get to be this big by the summer. And of course you won't have any flowers. The only time you'll see flowers are very early, right now, early in the spring. Now, one of the cool things about violets in general, we have maybe 10 species in the state. We also have non-native species that are used a lot in gardening. All violets are edible, and it's both the leaves, early leaves, and the flowers that are edible. And so I'm going to go ahead and eat this, and we'll see what it tastes like, or what I think it tastes like. Every violet has a different flavor. This is nice. This has got a bit of a cucumber taste to it. And not especially sweet. Some of the blue violets have actual sugar in the corolla, which is an attractant for bees. And you'll get a beautiful sweet flavor, like a little blast of sugar. But not so with this one. This one's much more like a cucumber. So violets are an often overlooked wild food. They're also really pretty, and they're nice for pollinators as well. Pollinators are on the hunt today, trying to find these flowers so that they can have something to feed their young, to keep themselves going. So of course, whatever we would take from the forest, we would try to not take it all, leave some for the wildlife. So with that, we're going to go on to our next plant. So in addition to these wonderful wildflowers, there are other elements of nature that are very important seasonally, and perhaps the most important habitat element in the spring is vernal pools. Vernal is another word for spring. So when you hear about vernal pools, it's a lot fancier than it really is. It's just a place that collects water, oftentimes melted snow. Also, if we have a lot of spring rains, they collect at that same time, and they fill up these depressions. They fill up with water, and they're very important for wildlife, for a certain kind of wildlife, especially frogs and salamanders. We say amphibians. Amphibians really need a place where they can go lay their eggs in water that won't get eaten by fish. And so to find that place, they can't go to a pond, they can't go to a river. They have to find these vernal pools, because the vernal pools will dry out as the season progresses. They start out full of water, and the amphibians go into them, lay their eggs, and then the water will last for maybe 4 to 8 weeks. The eggs will hatch, and the little critters will quickly mature so that they can climb out when the water dries up and be okay. And that's the way it works. So we're going to see some beautiful vernal pools right now. We're going to start with a small one, and then we're going to walk our way into a big one. So if we just follow me, we can see, again, down where the land drops down is where the water collects. And that's a nice small vernal pool. The shade is really important. It keeps it cool, keeps the water nice and cool for the animals. And the plants here are pretty cool as well. We've got a whole bunch of these hophornbeam trees. Austria virginiana, it's a whole grove of hophornbeam. Hophornbeams never get bigger than 30, 40 feet, and they never get wider than this. This is a gigantic hophornbeam. So now we're going to walk to the big vernal pool. here we go. We're going to walk into this beautiful primeval vernal pool. With a lot of tannins, brown in color. That's usually indicative of low oxygen. So this is not a wetland that you would expect to see marsh marigold. And that's just right for a lot of the amphibians. It's the right pH, and the murky water gives them a lot more cover from being harvested by other animals. Blue heron are known to come into vernal pools to feed on the young salamanders and frogs, as are some other wildlife species. So it's a bit of a tough life that these guys have. They come in, they congregate, they have a big party, and produce these masses of eggs. The adults do. And then a lot of times they leave. The eggs hatch. The babies are on their own. And again, they have to grow up really fast because the water's going to disappear. And when it does, they have to be ready for that. Ready to travel and figure out how to live without the pool of water. So I'm going to look around for an egg mass. And if I see one, I'll show it to you. And if I don't, then I won't. Here we go. I'm not seeing any eggs today. If we looked for a while, we might find them. But basically, what you'd be looking for would be a stick like this, or even smaller than this, and attached to it would be a big blob of eggs. If it were wood frog eggs, it would look kind of like tapioca pudding. It would have these, or bubble tea, if you've ever had bubble tea, it would have like these little distinct blobs all connected in a big mass. There could be as many as 200 eggs in that blob. And if it were a salamander, there'd be less of them, and it would be uniform, like Jell-O. But basically, it's the same process, that where they adhere the eggs to some piece of wood in the wetland, and so the eggs can develop uninterrupted. This vernal pool is especially beautiful because of the cliff wall that's holding the water in, and I would assume that this is a high value vernal pool, probably very consistent, fills up every year, and the wildlife is well aware of it, and they can have certainty that they can come back here year after year to lay their eggs. Okay, so now we're going to look at another plant, and this plant is in the same family as marsh marigold, which again is Ranunculaceae, the crowfoot or ranunculus family. It's a big family. There's over 2,000 species of plants in Ranunculaceae globally. And so these two plants really don't look much alike at all, but they are related. And the plant is Hepatica americana. Also sometimes goes by the genus of anemone, Anemone americana. There's some dispute in botanical circles about which name to give it. But Hepatica is the older and more familiar name to people, and here it is, growing on this boulder, which is a place it likes to be. Now the flowers are closed because it's a little cooler today, so it's saving its strength. It doesn't waste time keeping its flowers open if it doesn't think it's going to get pollinated. And it also closes its flowers when it rains, which is pretty cool. There are two species of Hepatica in this region. You can even see them growing together sometimes. This is called blunt-leaved Hepatica, or round-leaved Hepatica, because the leaves are rounded on the ends. They're not pointed. If they were pointed, it would be called sharp-lobed or sharp-leaved Hepatica, and they would come to a point on the ends. This one, Hepatica americana, likes conditions like this: boulders, places that are more acidic, and maybe a little cooler. Sharp-lobed Hepatica would be more where we saw the marsh marigold flowers. This is a very important plant for pollinating insects, especially bees. So that's Hepatica. We're looking at the round-lobed Hepatica as opposed to the sharp. But you might see either or both in your travels. And if you do, it'll probably cheer you up. Always cheers me up. Okay, so here we are. We're back at the plant we looked at earlier this morning. It's more open than it was. This is the flower. Let's see if I can kind of show you more what it would look like normally. This is what it's going to look like in a couple of hours. And so you can tell it's very similar to a dandelion. It's in the same group. It's a composite flower, which means that every one of these yellow petals is connected to an individual flower inside. So composite flowers produce a tremendous amount of seed. This plant is in the aster family, Asteraceae, and it's not native. So we're seeing it growing here on the side of the road because this is where it can outcompete our native plants. This is coltsfoot, also called tash plant, or ass's foot, or horsefoot, but coltsfoot is the very familiar name. And coltsfoot blooms extremely early, as you can see. Again, nothing else is blooming here except for the coltsfoot, and it puts out its flowers before it puts out its leaves. So it comes up out of the ground, blooming, first thing in the spring. Then the flowers will fade. This will, just like a dandelion, this will turn into a white, fluffy packet of seed that will get distributed through the wind. And then the leaves will come out and will get bigger. And it's called coltsfoot or horse's foot because the leaf shape is very distinctive, reminiscent of a horse's.